Welcome to Forever Unbreakable, everybody. Tonight I am joined by somebody that I had the opportunity to kind of watch go through an endurance endeavor that most people will probably think is stupid or insane, but the cause behind it is absolutely not. And I'm excited to hear about it because the only thing I've seen is little snippets of interviews that have been plucked down by the media and small little postings on Facebook and stuff. So tonight I am joined by Anna Perna, and Anna is a individual that ran 7 days for MS.
Yes.
So talk about what the event does. Like, tell us a little bit about it because you'll do it far more justice than my bit of research will.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was a part of a relay across the U.S. It starts in L.A. and ends in New York, and it started April 7th back in L.A., and there are 18 runners that it takes to get across the U.S. Each runner runs, give or take, around 170 miles in 6 to 7 days. So I ran from Sunbury, Pennsylvania to New York City in 7 days, and I did 179 miles.
Yeah, so that's basically like a marathon a day. I think the math totals out at like 25.8 or something miles, doesn't it?
It does. So I was running 27 miles a day, and then the last day I put in less miles, which was actually exciting at that point.
Yeah, I'm sure. So were you the last leg then?
I was the final leg of the relay.
Dang. So because this is your second year doing it, isn't it?
This is my second year doing this. Last year I ran from Joliet, Illinois into Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I ran 160 miles in 6 days. And that was definitely a different experience, but all for the same cause. This is to raise money for multiple sclerosis, which is something that is near and dear to me as my mother has had it for over 20 years.
Yeah, so talk about I guess let's rewind all the way back to First, how old are you?
I'm 28 years old.
Okay, so since you were 8 years old, your mother's been dealing with this. So
yeah, around that.
So talk about what it was like growing up and what it's like today, and why you're so passionate about it, because it's a serious illness that needs more and more attention, more funds raised to help fight it. So like, talk about what life is like when somebody that close to you suffers from something so serious.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's almost hard to remember back that far, like with her with MS, just because things have changed so drastically. Like the symptoms can vary by each person who has multiple sclerosis. My mom herself was a runner as well, and she had started experiencing numbness in her legs and also like falling when she was running. So that was kind of ultimately how she got diagnosed. But growing up with it over time, she lost her ability to use her legs, and ultimately now she can no longer walk or stand up on her own, but she is incredibly independent. She uses a scooter to get around. She has a vehicle that's like handicap accessible, all that stuff, but it's almost like really hard because I kind of only know her now as not being able to walk anymore. But I don't look at that as like a weakness because she's kind of like made this life out of it, that she's super independent and able to still do everything despite that.
Yeah, she's a super strong individual, right?
Yeah.
I look at people who, it's not even the strongest individuals I look at, because like I look at myself and I'm like, yeah, you're a pretty strong individual. Like, you've gone out and you've done these, remarkable things, much like what you've accomplished twice now. Mm-hmm. But I look at people who are even stronger than us, are the people that have, not to their fault, because she didn't do anything. She wasn't like, please give me MS,
Right.
So nothing to her fault, but they're the strongest individuals because they choose every day to get up and go crush life, even though they have all of these setbacks and handicaps, that don't provide them the same, benefit that you or I are provided. And
Absolutely.
I think it's the most remarkable thing to watch are people like that. In my world, I get to see a lot of it in the veterans that were blown up that now are missing a leg or an arm.
Yeah.
And like the things I watch them do, it's insanely remarkable. And it's just it's a level of willpower that, a part of me believes the only way there is to be put through, that level of adversity. And I've got to think that throughout that event, like looking and thinking about your mother had to come to mind constantly. And had to provide you that additional like mental strength required to achieve that goal, I would assume.
Absolutely. I mean, it's the whole reason that I'm doing it, but to see somebody who, like, symptoms maybe aren't necessarily always apparent to others, like with what she struggles with every day. Like some days are totally fine. I mean, she's not going to be able to like walk tomorrow, but like some days she's fine and other days she's not. And just thinking about the fact that yes, she does get up every single day and still does life. And that's really inspiring.
Yeah, it's super inspiring to me. Like it's things like that super excite me because, like, and the other thing, like we through the organization that I'm currently the president of, we do a lot of we deal a lot with suicide and people who get in that position. They really have two choices initially. One is or three choices. One, I can lay here and feel sorry about myself. Two, I can take my life, or three, I can go do something, with my life yet and live my life to the maximum of my capabilities. And that's what your mother is doing as well as many other people who suffer from that same disease.
Yeah, definitely. She always says like, there are a lot of tough days that do happen, but she always says tomorrow is a new day. Because I mean, sometimes you do have tough days and it's really hard to just like power through and you just kind of have to let it like kind of embrace the suck a little bit and then move forward. And she always says tomorrow is a new day. And it usually is for her. So
yeah, embrace the suck is a huge thing.
It's
one of like it's two of my favorite words when put together because it's so true. So like whereabouts do you live? Like what city?
I live in Milwaukee.
So you have winters here, like we have winters everywhere. And you when did you run your portion of the relay?
I just ran it August 4th through the 10th.
Yeah, so you still have to train through the winter months to prepare for running, multiple marathons back to back to back.
Yes.
And so that embrace the suck, you have to live with that because if you have to do a long run and it's snowing out or raining out, you've got to do it because on race week, or your relay week, if you will, you don't have a choice. Like you don't get to pick the weather, just like your mother didn't get to pick having MS or any of the other individuals that suffer from it.
Right.
So like, yeah, what are some things that you do mentally kind of, I guess, to prepare yourself for those long run days that you've got to put in when you know that it's going to be shit weather?
So, I mean, I know you may think it's a cop-out, but I use the treadmill because that means, like, no excuses. I get it done. Mainly use the treadmill. Obviously, if there was, like, ice out there, I'm not going to lie, I can be pretty clumsy and fall. So it's for safety reasons, too. But
yeah, absolutely.
But realistically, never miss a run is, like, something that I tried to make part of my routine in terms of training. And I'm not saying that I was perfect at that, but using the treadmill kind of like helped with that. Knowing that I would not be in the middle of winter, like running, I only had to use the treadmill for, like January and February primarily. And then I was able to like get outside in March, but it does help just to make sure you never like miss a run so that you can build that mental strength.
No, it's huge.
Yeah.
And I think running on a treadmill is miserable.
It is miserable.
Like, arguably worse than running in a snowstorm because there's nothing like I don't know if you're able to do it, but I can't watch a TV while I'm running.
I do. That's what gets me through though.
Yeah. Like I've tried and I'm just like, eventually I'm not paying attention to the TV.
Oh, I'm not, but it's there for like that
those
like,
few moments.
Yes.
Yeah, because I end up looking down at the treadmill screen and I'm like, I'm not going anywhere. So I usually like have to tape a towel over the screen so I can't look at it. And like, and for those of you out there that are getting into running or have been into running, if you think treadmill running is miserable, put a towel over the screen. It does make it a little less miserable, but I still think absolutely miserable.
I can contest to that. I put something over it so I can't see it because, frankly, I just am like, it's not helping the matter. So.
Yeah, you feel like you're going nowhere.
No, it's like I'm going to be here for a while. Like I literally would be doing long runs on the treadmill in January and February and have people, like multiple people, come in and out of the gym next to me while I was still there.
Yeah, it's funny. That was always before I was ever into running. I would see people, like I would go to the gym for an hour 15 minutes, sometimes even an hour and a half if I was like being the guy who's having a conversation in the gym with a buddy or something like that.
Yeah.
And you would see the same person on the same treadmill when I walked in, and they're sweating when I walked in. And when I leave, they're sweating and they're still running. And I was like, that's a crazy motherfucker.
Yes.
That's a crazy person. and now I do a bunch of running myself. So I have the same scenario when I'm running a lot of times, and it's funny to me, or humorous, the way that you looked at people before you get into the sport and the way that you look at them now that you're in, you know.
Absolutely.
It really changes the outlook. So let's talk about your first time doing the relay. So how did you hear about it? How did you get involved with it? Because it's a small group. If it's only 18 people going across the country, it's got to be mildly difficult, I guess, to become one of those people.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of people applying for it. I mean, like when I interviewed for it, they said if this were easy, there would be many more applicants for this.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, if I had to go run a 5K, I'd be like, yeah, sign me up.
Absolutely.
You know?
So actually, I was training for a marathon at the time, the Cellcom Marathon, the first time that I ran it here in Green Bay.
So that would have been like 2016 then?
2015.
Okay, nice.
At the time, and I had wanted to, at the time, there was a current relay runner at my gym who was training for the relay, and I reached out to her and talked to her like about her experience, like what kind of training it would have taken to do this. And she showed me the training plan. And I was only in the midst of training for my first marathon. And I was like, there's no way I could do this. Like, this is going to be...
Because the marathon
Well, right. I was like, I hadn't even conquered my first marathon. I had done many half marathons. And I said to myself after my first half marathon, I'm never doing this again. And, you know, there I am training for a full marathon.
Yeah.
So I talked to her about it, and I realized, you know what, I'm going to try to conquer my first marathon, and then from there kind of see if I feel like this is realistic. So after my first marathon, which was in 2015, I actually, you know what, it might have been 2016 because I ran in 2017. So it would have been in 2016 I ran Cellcom, and then shortly after I ran that, I signed up to, like, I put in an application for it, which you had to like fill out a bunch of questions and like write an essay as to why you wanted to be a part of it. And then they interview you for it. And I accepted that and ended up running in 2017, my first time.
Nice. So let's talk about the Cellcom, right? So did you hit a wall during the Cellcom?
Absolutely. Mile 18.
Yeah, that's the same mile that usually gets me. It's somewhere between like 18 and 19. I know the wheels are coming off. It doesn't matter how fast or slow I'm going. That's just my wall is the same place. So you finish that day and you're obviously, you know, mentally and physically broken down because a marathon is no joke. Just like I tell people, I'm like, half marathon is no joke. Even a 5K for a lot of people, it's no joke. And
it's a feat.
Yeah. And I'm extremely proud for those people that get out there, put forth the effort required to finish and finish the event. And it kind of leads to like this, I almost call it a sickness, right? Like, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? And so you finished the Cellcom Marathon because, like you said, with the halves, beat down, broken. The day that you finished, did you think about running the relay, or were you like, this was too much? And then it's a week later that you're like, you know what? I can do that.
I was like, I can do that, just knowing that I would like continually like just get better. And that's kind of what the approach I took with half marathons though too. Like my first one was god awful. Like I was slow. I walked. I was not properly trained. And then I finally figured out like, how to do it properly and like started improving my times and like getting better at that. And then after the first marathon, I was like, I made it through, like I could do this again, and not like confidently, but I was like, I could do this, like I can train for it.
Yeah. So you had a pretty good confidence right away that you could do these things back to back. 'Cause that's and this is a thing that I often wonder, because I had signed up to run a 100-mile solo. And now I had to cancel out of that for a deployment. But when I get back, my intent is to run a 100-mile solo. So I've run marathons before, multiple marathons now. And then I did my first relay 2 years ago, which wasn't even me running a marathon. It was me running like a 6 or 7 mile chunk, and then I think like a 5 mile chunk, and then another 4 mile chunk or something like that.
Was it like a Ragnar?
Kind of. It was the one that starts in Oshkosh. It's like,
okay.
And then you run up to the Bay of Green Bay.
That's awesome.
And so it's a 55-mile run. We split up with 4 or 5 guys. I think there was 4 of us. But during that run, by my third leg, I was smoked. And I was like, I'm only at like mile 14, 15 total on the day. But taking that break was so, I felt like abusive to my body. And I don't know if it was maybe because I was just running harder, knowing that I had shorter legs to run, or what it was. But this is something that like super interests me, is you had to take those breaks every day. So you ran 27 miles, and then you take off like 12, 14, 16 hours, whatever it is. And then you come back and you run another 27 mile day. Like, I feel like that is more abusive or more difficult to do than it is to just go out and run, say, 50 miles in one day. Because like taking that break, you put your body in this like recovery mode, and then it's like, whoa, we got to get out of recovery mode and start running again. So what was it like at the beginning of each day? Because eventually, as I remember with the relay, eventually my legs broke down, warmed up, and I felt like I was okay. I can actually run again. But what was it like at day 2, day 3, day 4 of especially your first year, where you didn't know what to expect, going back and hitting that next morning, getting out and starting? Like, what is the starting like each day?
So my first year and my second year were wildly different experiences, because the terrain was totally different. I was in the Appalachian Mountains this past time, and then like I was in like flat, like Indiana the first time. So the
first time was probably easier.
Well, like if you want to call it easy, yes, exactly. But yes, the way looking at it, I would call it easier. But my first time, the first 3 days were incredibly tough. Like the first day you go out, like, and you're fine. The second day, it's just painful, like the next morning to like even start. And like the third day, it's like you have to will your body to like almost move. Like you need like oil to like some WD-40 or something to like get yourself moving a little bit. But like you said, you kind of have that, once you start moving, then you get into it and you kind of like loosen up, and you work a little bit better and your body starts to work a little more efficiently. But the first 3 days essentially were really hard. But I will say the last 3 days, both times that I've done the relay, ended up being not easier, but my body just sort of adapted to what I was doing at that point. So the recovery, I don't think like worked against me. It actually like sort of helped. But I think in the first 3 days, it did sort of create like more challenges, because like my body was stiff and you're like trying to get it to move.
Yeah, it's trying to adjust. And you had a good team with you. Like, what did you guys do for recovery? Because and you know better than I do even how critical for an event or an undertaking like this is, like nutrition, recovery, all those pieces that are oftentimes more important than running itself, to make sure that you're good for day 2, day 3, day 4, like you're doing things on the first day for day 4.
Yes.
Like, and that's the hard part for, a lot of people to see and understand is in long endurance things, you're doing something now for the benefits 4 hours down the road or 4 days down the road. So what are some of the tricks that you guys used to assist with the recovery aspect when you'd get done running or during runs to rehab some things?
So I actually, because it was like so hot and like traveling both years when I did it, like every few miles I would be able to, there was a crew vehicle with 2 people. They would have like water and like food and stuff. So I would refill on water and like grab food. So I was essentially like getting, you know, a couple minutes to like kind of get some fuel in me and like fuel as I was running. Along with like some Gatorade and stuff too. But I will say the art of fueling is truly like, it's not even an art, it's a science, and it's very hard to get it right every time.
Oh, it's impossible to get it right. I've yet to get it right.
Yeah, it's very hard. This past relay, the first day, being like I had a lot of elevation gain and my body like was not like accustomed to that because I trained in Milwaukee and there's, you know,
no
that
hills.
Doesn't exist.
Yeah. Much like up here.
Yes, exactly. And so I didn't realize it, but I was like, my body was definitely struggling with it. I didn't feel like I was, but I like almost fainted like at one of the stops. I was totally fine when I was running, but like at one of my stops to like get more water.
Shit.
And then I realized I was probably like dehydrated and I was like just failing at the fueling that day. But then like the next day, like I nailed it, like between like making sure to eat at every single stop and like more Gatorade. And it was just, it's hard to get it right every time. So it's like, I think the more often you can fuel like in smaller portions as you're going through, it helps for the long run each day.
Yeah, what I like there that you said the most is like making sure I ate at every fuel stop.
Yes.
And like that's a big thing for people because you start and you're feeling great and it's like, I'm not hungry. I don't need it.
Yes.
But hungry or not, it's like you have to jam it down your throat.
You do. And they say if you are hungry, then you're too late. Like if you get to that point where you are hungry or you feel you need something, you're already too late. So you need to stay in front of it is the key. So it's a lot of like essentially forcing yourself to do it. Yes.
Yeah. Like I remember during an Ironman that I was like beyond sick from the amount of food I was jamming down my pipe. And it saved me. Like it got me to mile 16, 17, somewhere around there of the run part of Ironman before I was like, okay, now I'm in a bad spot. But it was like, I just remember like, stick to the plan. Like the whole time I'm on my bike, I'm like, stick to the plan. Just put this down. Like, and I'm not a big fan of the goose. I don't know. Do you like the goose?
I don't do the goose. I actually, pretzels and those like baby applesauce packets.
Oh, yeah.
Very digestible.
I've never tried
like,
the baby applesauce.
Seriously though, game changer.
Yeah, I've never tried the baby applesauce. I'm going to have to try that.
Yeah,
it's a good one.
Yeah.
Because the goose, there's too much sugar.
They're hard on your stomach, and they're not actually,
hard.
I feel like they don't digest easily, even though that's kind of what the purpose of them is.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I probably have, honestly, like 20 different, my wife probably hates it, but I have like canisters of, Heat and Tailwind and, all these different brands of like liquid calories, if you will, liquid carbohydrates and all that stuff. And now I've switched over to a ketosis diet.
Okay.
Generally, for the most part, I have some very not so good weeks on it. But so that I can be more fat optimized and burning fats instead of carbs, which now you have to take a different carbohydrate in that's more of a slow release and all this stuff. So like, there's a tremendous amount of science that goes into nutrition, and like you said, like getting it right it's so rare. I'm yet to like get my nutrition right to where like I feel like I'm taking in enough nutrition. My body feels great the whole time. It just it doesn't exist.
It doesn't, and it's not the same every time because your body might be like in a different state than it was the day before. So like you think you're like, okay, I'm going to do exactly what I did that time that it felt really good, and I'm going to like do this, and it doesn't work one day and it works the next day.
So do you think that that's what played into a bit of the elevation aspect getting to you, is the fact that like you had never had the opportunity to train or check your nutrition at elevation?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, there was a lot of factors that week. Obviously, it was over 90 degrees.
Yeah, it was a super hot week.
It was super hot.
Beautiful
it was
week.
Super humid. There was no shade. And also, I was climbing over 11,000 feet of elevation gain within the first 3 to 4 days. So it was incredibly challenging.
Yeah, especially when you're used to flatland running,
right.
Like around here. So when I was training for the world record, and then when I started training towards this 100-miler, we would go do hill repeats out on like the only significant hill we have here, and you would just run up and down the thing for like 2 hours.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is miserable. But you still lack the big component there of the elevation, because the elevation out in the mountains is substantially higher than here. So you get less oxygen in your system, and you're running at you're running, you're climbing elevation, which you don't do around here. So you're using different muscles and a whole different part of like your oxygen system or how your body processes oxygen, because you're not getting enough.
Right. And I didn't even realize it because I wasn't like huffing and puffing like it was like a normal, but like ultimately once I stopped, that was like when I realized what was happening.
So did you guys put in different break rest cycle, run rest cycles, or anything like that to kind of combat that, or did you just kind of
I was stopping more often is ultimately what happened, just to kind of, I also was running out of water a lot faster. So yes, I was running like shorter periods and then like kept going. The breaks don't like last too long because you obviously like don't want to get stiff, but they're definitely useful to like keep you going for the whole day.
So you're increasing breaks, you're consuming more water, you're close to fainting at one point. Like, does that start to get to your head?
Yeah, and this was on day 1.
Yeah, so, that's what I mean.
My first day was incredibly challenging. Like I broke down because I don't think I wrapped my head around exactly what that elevation and like was going to be. Like I knew it, I saw it, like I had the route like in front of me. It showed like an elevation gain, like you get it and you're like, okay, I can do this. But like when you're actually there physically running, and then my body was just like not cooperating with me, and I was so frustrated, and I felt like all the training I had put in, which I had trained for almost 8 months, was like not helping me in any way. And I was like, how is this serving me any purpose? Like, I just thought I completely failed at that point on day 1. So it made the first couple of days incredibly challenging, because my first go around, while it was incredibly hard, I never kind of faced that, like, I don't think I can do this. Like, it was hard, but I didn't ever face like all these elements that made me think I couldn't do it.
Yeah. That's probably my favorite part so far of everything that we've talked about, is these moments where you reach that mental point of like, I don't think I can do this. And then you start to think, this is my assumption, so correct me if I'm wrong, but then you start to think about your mom and about all the people with MS and the struggles that they have every day. And then I've got to assume that you start to tell yourself, statements like, you're healthy, this isn't that hard. Like, let's get one foot in front of the other and figure it out. And then 2 minutes later, you go back into that cycle of like, I can't do this. And those little spurts, like how accurate is that?
That is incredibly accurate. And also, like, I mean, not only that, but the people who like donated to the cause, because I had to fundraise for it. And even like the director of the relay, like I felt like I was letting so many people down, because I was like, I'm on day 1. I'm not even through day 1. Like, I can't finish this, all these negative thoughts. But like thinking about why I'm doing this. And one of my crew members, like he kept reminding me, like when I would stop, like, why are you doing this? Like, what, you're doing this for a reason. And he kept like making me think about that and reminding me of that. And it really did help. Because I faced a lot of challenges. I was moving a lot slower than I anticipated. It was taking me longer.
Which means less rest that night.
Yeah, and also just like it mentally, to be on your feet longer than you expected. You're just the last thing that you want, because you're already putting in so many miles. So.
Yeah. No, that's crazy and exciting. So, talk about the crew. So who is your crew? Who came out to help crew you? Did you get the opportunity to work with them before they crewed you on the race, so that they knew like, hey, here's when Anna's in a bad spot, here's when she's in a good spot, here's the things we need to do. Do we need to get more sugar in her diet? Do we need to get less sugar in her diet? Like, were they experienced with you to know like these are the signs and symptoms that we're looking for to be able to better prepare at the next water stop if they got to run to Walmart? Or was it just you like, hey, go get me some gummy bears because I'm craving gummy bears type scenario?
So the MS Run the US organization actually hired 2 crew people who were with me, so I didn't know them like before I went out there.
Wow,
so
so that
like
makes
one of them, his name was Ricardo. He came and picked me up from the airport, and like we started talking, and he asked like a lot of questions about like what I liked and didn't like in terms of running, to try to like get to know me and stuff before I essentially was running. But a lot of it was like on the fly. Luckily, he is really familiar with, he goes to school for kinesiology, and like he was really familiar with the body and all that stuff. So I felt like that definitely helped in terms of when I didn't know what I needed, he did.
Yeah.
So that actually was incredibly helpful, because like all the things that you think that you prepare for, like this is what works for me, like all of a sudden it doesn't work, and then you have to find a new way to like get yourself through. And he definitely was like that. Mine, like you should be stretching, or we should roll at this break, or like you need like some tailwind, or you need Gatorade, or you need this. And so that was really helpful.
No, that's so huge, because a lot of times, and I talk to, I've got a couple of friends that obviously do some crazy runs and bike rides and swims and things like that as well. And I think that, and I'm sure you have additional friends that do all this crazy stuff, because I feel like you slowly start to surround yourself with those people, or the personalities that are going out and doing great things for the community and giving back. So that's why I was curious, because a lot of these guys that I know, their crews go out on training runs with them. And like, I've got a buddy who's training for a pretty ridiculous bike ride that is still pretty kind of hush hush. But it's long, very long.
Awesome.
And he's got like 20 to 30 hour bike rides planned, where he'll have a crew, where he'll have his crew that's going to follow him on his big event, follow him, through the night and all that stuff. And they're just dialing in, like, when does he need this? When do we need to mandate breaks? What is this? What is that? And that's a huge, huge significance, and that's something that you didn't have, playing in your favor, was because you had nobody in your crew then that you knew prior to getting off the airplane.
No, yeah, exactly. I knew that they were trained, like with the other runners and having worked with them, but everybody's different.
Everybody's different.
Knowing though that they were able to kind of like anticipate and see like what I needed was actually, it felt like good to know that I didn't actually have to think about it, because somebody else was for me, which actually helped. And also I have to give props to one of my crew members, because when I was at like my low on like my first 2 days, he like jumped out and ran he ran some miles with me, and
nice.
He's a fast runner.
Awesome.
And he like did my pace and just like came out there and distracted me from like thoughts. And so they definitely hired some good crew people this year too.
That's awesome.
To help with that.
So how much money does this run raise every year approximately?
Approximately, each runner, so there's 18 of us, and each runner has to raise $10,000 minimum. So if there's 18 runners, like 180,000 or almost 200,000, essentially, because people raise more than that at times. So
yeah, no, I'm sure. So that's huge. So the event is a huge success. Like, every year, which is remarkable. And it raises a lot of times I say more important than the money is raising the awareness. Like raising the awareness of what is MS, that people struggle with it, that there's a need for support, and that there is a process moving forward, to better enrich the lives of those who suffer from it. If we can't cure it, at least we can make their lives better, right? We can assist them with getting things to improve their life, such as, like a handicap accessible or usable vehicle, making their home more handicap or usable, and I think that that's significant. So what I'm going to do too is I'm going to put on here, you'll have to send me the where people can go to donate, but right now on the screen I'll get the donation link.
Okay.
So I'm writing down the time right now so I know where to put it.
Cool.
Boom. But yeah, so right now, everybody, there'll be a donation link on the screen if you have the YouTube video. And if you're not watching the YouTube video and you're just listening to it, at the 35-minute marker, we'll have that up on the screen, so you can go check YouTube, reference it, and it'll be on there. So, because it's still, whether donating to this event, because this event is going to obviously take place for years and years to come, I'm certain of it. but you can also just donate to MS in general. And it's a great great place to put some money if you've got some extra money and you feel, so obliged. So I think that's important that we put that information out.
Yeah.
The only way to make improvements in our community, I think, is to raise awareness, and by running a cross continental, relay or not, it doesn't matter. You're going to raise a whole bunch of awareness.
Yeah.
And that's like, so I had no idea who you were or anything. And I've known your brother, but I've never met you or anything like that. And I saw your brother shared something about it, and I was like, and actually my wife had sent me the share, and she's like, what do you think about bringing her on the podcast? And I was like, absolutely. And then 2 hours later, your brother messages me, and I sent him a screenshot of the conversation between my wife and I. And I was like, already in discussions. I'm going to let her finish because you've got enough things going on with trying to just run the race. But I was like, as soon as she's done, I was like, I'm going to send her congratulations and then send her a message to come on the podcast. But it's like, through this, you're raising awareness more and more and more, because this is going to get its reach. And the more that you do these things as well, which are important and time consuming. You had to drive up to Green Bay from Milwaukee, and then provide me essentially an hour to 2 hours of your time. But it's important, and it's those little things that go into, continuing to raise funds and raise more awareness.
Yeah, absolutely. And like along the relay, each runner has the opportunity, like we have somebody within the organization who reaches out to the communities that we're running through to see like if we can, touch people and talk to them, or like whatever we can do to let them know that we're in town, whether that's like news people or cross country teams or things like that. So I actually had the opportunity to run with 2 different cross country teams while I was doing my run this year.
That's
in one
awesome.
town in Pennsylvania, we had a police escort down like the main street of Easton, Pennsylvania.
That's
and I was
be
running
like the
with
coolest thing.
it was really awesome, and running with a cross country team. And of course I'm like in deep pain, and they're all like,
they're
super jazzed to like
along.
cruise along, but I have to lead the group. So it was a really awesome experience, and I got to talk to them a little bit about why I was doing it and the cause. And then also my last day, a cross country team from the Jersey area ran over the George Washington Bridge into New York City with me. So
that's
that was
sweet.
awesome.
That's just like, that kind of gives me a little bit of a chill. And I also picture like these kids that are, because these are high school cross country teams. So these are kids that run, a pretty fast 5K.
Oh, absolutely. Way faster than me.
Yeah. And it's like, I don't run my 5K that fast when I'm only doing a 5K.
Yeah.
And you could be at mile 20 for the day.
Yeah.
And they're like going out to do their 5K.
Yep. Exactly.
Or 5 miles or whatever it is that they're going to run with you. And, that to me it's awesome. And it shows, so many times you see all the bad stuff in the media, and it just shows the goodness in America.
Yeah.
And how many people actually care about you as an individual and the cause for which you believe so much in.
Yeah.
Was there a lot of people, or a decent amount of people that suffer from MS that were able to come out along the way, or be at some of your start points, or be at the finish line, I would assume?
So I actually finished at a hospital in Harlem, and they deal with it as a neurology center there.
Oh, wow.
So that they were part of the finish there. But along the way, there weren't that many people because I'm like literally in the middle of nowhere. But I did have my mom come out, and she was with me for the last 3 days essentially. So it was really great. She did that last year as well. So to like have her on those last few days was really an awesome experience.
It's got to be super motivating and inspiring to know that, like, and you're like, talk about how proud your mom is, because your mom has to be so proud of you and what you've done and what you're continuing to do.
Yeah, like it's insane, but definitely like last year when I finished, I still get like goosebumps thinking about it, but like people were like cheering me on, and as I was like about to finish, and then like I walked right up to her and hugged her, and like there's a video of it, and it went like everybody went completely silent, and I like didn't expect that, but it was like obviously a moment between us, but it was really, really a good moment, and it happened again this year too. So,
That's awesome, but
yeah.
it should happen. It's that moment. It's super awesome too that somebody was able to capture it, because all too often, like those raw, pure moments don't get captured.
Yeah.
And it's like they're remarkable when they happen, and to me they only happen through this deep pain and suffering and sacrifice that like your mom got to experience for 3 days of watching you just suffer and be in pain, a pain that she knows all too well.
Yeah, and I called her on the first few days when she wasn't with me, and that was hard too. Like, it was hard for her as it was for me, because she's like, I just want to be out there with you. Like, I know like how hard this is for you, and she wasn't there yet. So I like my first day, I was really, really struggling. Like, I don't think I can put into words how hard my first day was, and she was the first person that I called to just be like, I'm totally unsure of this experience right now, if I can even do it. But she was my number one supporter through both years of doing this. So
yeah, that's crazy. Like,
yeah.
I just to me it's awesome. Like,
Yeah.
it's super real. And the realest moments that I've had in my life with my family and friends are in those moments where we have both suffered through something and experience that together. And when you come out of the end of it, is that like most realist moment of we can't be broken. Like, our relationship can't be broken. What we are as independent individuals can't be broken, and that's really where like Forever Unbreakable came from, is that those moments of like, just this is what makes a person unbreakable. So describe that a little bit. We'll get into the famous question here.
Yeah.
What describe Unbreakable to you? As we've talked about today, you've obviously been in some moments where you were, potentially one step away from being broken.
Absolutely. And I mean, I honestly felt broken at the first day, but essentially I knew that I could keep moving, and the thought of knowing that I still have the ability to use my legs, even if it's just walking and not running, or even crawling at that. I didn't crawl, I walked at sometimes, but essentially in the hardest parts, like thinking about that there are others who can't do this, and I can use it as a purpose to raise awareness. And that's kind of what got me through, and realized that like, I am going to get through this, even though this is literally the hardest thing. And I feel like I'm melted, like on the ground, like completely apart, but actually I'm not. So, yeah.
No, that's awesome. Like, to me, it's incredible on day one. Like, listening to you talk about it now, and it's funny because now you laugh about it.
Yeah, I laugh now, but not then.
And at the time when you're like, yeah, I broke down, like, it's fun to sit here now, and having been through some unique positions in my life that have caused me to want to quit or attempt to quit, and just not be able to. It's fun to sit here and watch now, because I laugh about my scenarios as well.
Yeah.
And you're in that position, and that's what I think a lot of people need to understand is like, yes, life might be tough today, or this moment might be extremely difficult. But if you stay the course, keep grinding, you'll get to laugh about it soon enough. And I don't think people realize that enough. And you sure don't realize it in the moment. Because in the moment, it's like, I'm never going to laugh about this. This is stupid. I can't do it. It's too damn tough. And then now you're, 3 weeks after?
Yeah.
And you're laughing about it already.
Yeah.
And you've probably been laughing about it for 2 weeks already.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, definitely in that moment, I do also think the fact that I knew that there were other people, like the, relay team itself, my family, my friends, everyone who supported me, that also kind of was like in my head too. Like, I can't let these people down. And like, while there were thoughts of quitting, I knew in my heart that I never would, but there were so many thoughts about quitting. But I think what got me through is knowing, like, I know I'm not going to quit. Like, I'm not going to stop. Also, I'm in the middle of nowhere. Like, where else am I going to go? Just like sit here and like hitchhike home. Like, I'm not going to feel good about that in the end.
Yeah. And you know, like, you spend a lot of time getting signed up, and you have a tremendous amount of donors and donations. And so, like, through the fundraising process, you've got a lot of people that like expect you to finish.
Yeah.
Like when I donated to you, I was like, yeah, she's going to finish. That's my expectation now.
Right.
Is that you finish. And I think that there's, you know, an astronomical amount of pressure on the requirement to finish. Like I was concerned with the world record. If I didn't break it, I was like, if I don't break this today, I've got to go back and do it again. Because I accepted these people's money on behalf of a charity, and then, you know, the money obviously went to the charity. I never really touched it, but like, if I don't come good on my promise, what kind of person am I?
Exactly. And that is exactly the thought there. That is, you nailed it.
And that's a high pressure situation. Is I compare it to, you know, the difficulty of it to like somebody shooting a game-winning shot from the free throw line.
Yeah.
Like you get a few moments to think about it, and then it's pressure on.
Absolutely.
Like, good luck. You know, so I think that's super cool, and I think that people need to, you know, when they look at what an individual is doing that they're donating their money towards, is like, when you do this, like the greatest part about doing that donation is now you're holding that person even more accountable.
Absolutely.
Of achieving what they've set out to achieve. So in a sense, it helps them, but it does add a ridiculous amount of pressure.
It does, but I think that pressure is also sort of in a sense, it's what carries you through to the end. I mean, it's harder to quit at that point. It's way harder to quit than
Absolutely.
Like the easy thought that's in your head. It's not that easy.
Absolutely.
So,
and you being the last leg, you had 17 people already do their part.
Yeah.
So it's like, if 17 other people did their part for this, I need to do my part for this, which is crazy. So are you going to go back and do it next year, or what's the plan?
I at this time, I'm not going to go back and do it next year. I'm going to take some time off. I spent 8 months training this year and then same last year, essentially. So it's like a big chunk of your time. And while it has been every bit worth it, I loved both experiences that I have. I love being a part of the organization. I think I'm going to just take some time off. I do enjoy like actual just marathon running. And I was going to run Chicago in October, but I deferred till 2019 to just kind of take some time and get back to like running on my terms and not in a training mode for a little bit.
And that's huge, right? For like we talk about on the podcast a lot about like your mental sanity, self-reflection, you know, mental clarity, all that stuff. And like when you're running, and we were actually talking about this, we were out on we ran like 13 miles yesterday morning or something like that, out on just a normal morning run. And we were talking about how the training, because my buddy Tommy's got Run Rabbit Run 100-miler out in Colorado in like 3 weeks. And this will be his, I think, third or fourth 100-mile run. And so we're talking about it, and he's like, I'm just so exhausted from all the training. Like, it's so mentally taxing. And it's nice to just go run for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. This training round was a lot harder too, knowing that like the first time I did it, like I followed everything to the book, like to a T. It was like, can't miss a run, like, and it absolutely paid off. But this go around, like knowing what it took, like, and then knowing what I had ahead of me, like when I started the training, and knowing how many months it was like mentally even more challenging just to like get through the training, because you're like, this is such a huge time commitment. And it is essentially like so exhausting. Like I lived in running clothes. Like I'm like morning, evening, like whatever. I work a full-time job too. So I'm like trying to get lots of runs in all the time, and long runs. Essentially the last like 2 months of training was just every weekend was a marathon, and like sometimes back to back. And during the week I would put long runs in, and I'd do it before I get up at 4 a.m. And you know, like it's crazy like what it does to your body. And you know, towards the end I definitely was struggling. So there were times where I would just tell myself like, just go out and like run whatever you can, and then eventually I would do what I was supposed to. But like just that mental game that you kind of play with yourself to like just get yourself out the door.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
It's a struggle. Like by the time the world record rolled around, I was so sick of running, and I was even more sick of carrying a pack. Because I had been working at it for 17 months.
That's
I was
a long
like,
time. That's a long time.
I am done with this. This is stupid. And, you know, I think that, like, I love running. I truly do. But I love it when it's on my terms. When I'm going through the training plan and checking the box of did I log enough miles, like you start to grow almost a hatred towards it some days. It's like, God, this is the last thing I want to do. And there's a lot of self-sacrifice that goes into a big achievement, you know, like that when you're especially doing it for something bigger than yourself, because you're buying multiple pairs of running shoes to do that distance, like 400 miles, 500 miles, and the running shoes are gone.
Yeah, and then you need a new pair.
And you're going through running clothes and your nutrition, like you're constantly going through, you know, nutrition stuff that you wouldn't otherwise buy if you weren't running, but you have to have it while out running, and water bottles and all this stuff. And then you have to take a week off of work. Yeah. And there's some long runs that, like, I remember having to I took like a Thursday off to go do a long ruck because I had long ruck, long run planned on a 4-day thing. So I was like, I have to take off work to get this done. And then so that was a Thursday I took off. And then on Friday, I got up at 2 a.m. to do my long run before work because I couldn't have a break between and getting the miles in. And it just grew this like disgust and hatred for it that as soon as record was done, I was like, and I remember I took a day off and then I went and ran the next day just to kind of like shake my legs out. So the race was on Sunday. I took Monday off and ran Tuesday. And Tuesday was the first time in like probably 8-9 months that I could run for myself, like my own thing, whatever I wanted to do. And I was like, where has this been?
Right.
Like, I enjoy this run. And it's kind of, it's super cool. And I don't think a lot of people understand that until you go out and do something huge and significant for something bigger than yourself. And, and it'll actually show you, like, I guess I kind of did like this before I grew this massive hatred towards it.
Right. I definitely am in that boat right now where I'm like, I am really struggling with that feeling of like when I was training at the end, I was like, do I even like this anymore? Like, you know, because it didn't feel like I was enjoying it, even though I enjoyed the cause that I was doing it for. So I'm really looking forward to just running on my own terms, because it's something that like running you can do for, hopefully, if you're healthy, like
a long time,
for life, for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. No.
And I hope to do that.
That's awesome. I like it. So what's next in your life if you're not going to run the relay next year and you deferred the Chicago Marathon? So what's next?
So I'm just going to take some time to kind of run on my own terms. I'll still be running because like without running, I feel like I don't have sanity. So I definitely will still be running, but just won't be training for anything until 2019. So I think I'm going to enjoy that. I also bought a house this past spring, so I'm going to spend some time actually taking care of it.
Dang. Housework.
Yes.
Isn't it amazing when you buy a house, how little you really knew about being a homeowner?
Oh yeah, you have no idea. Literally for me. I mean, you have an idea, but I'm like, with all the running, that was the last thing that I wanted to do. I would like do long runs on Saturday and then be like, and I have to go mow my lawn. So.
Yeah. And it's just miserable. Like, I had no idea when I bought my first home. I had no idea how much work went into being a homeowner. Like, you've got to pull weeds, and you've got to cut the lawn, and you got to snowblow the driveway or shovel the driveway, and you know you've got to like all sorts of stuff. And then there's like, I owned my house for like 6 months, and my furnace went out, and I was like, God. Oh man, I don't have the money for this, and like, it's amazing. I mean, I could talk about Unbreakable stories for hours on owning a home where it's like causes that financial burden that you're absolutely. Like, oh my God, this is miserable and I can't do it.
Yeah.
That's funny. Well, congrats on the new home purchase. That's awesome and exciting. And congrats on finishing the relay for the second time.
Thank you.
That's a remarkable feat. It was super exciting to watch and kind of see you go through those cycles in some of the pictures where one of the guys is helping you roll out your calves or something like that, and I'm just like, ooh.
If you could see
she's
the
in a
live feed
bad
on some of that,
spot.
you should have seen my face in some of the other photos.
Yeah,
It
I
was not
believe it.
good.
I believe it. But it's awesome.
Yeah.
And so great work.
Thank you.
It's remarkable. And great job raising funds and helping out and making an impact in the MS community as well as in your own community.
Yeah,
So
thank
I think that that's all very significant and important stuff. Again, we'll have the link up. It'll be up around the 35-minute marker of the video. So if you guys feel so inclined, please go out and donate or help continue to raise awareness about those with MS and what they go through. So do you got anything else you wanna bring up?
No, I think that's it. I really enjoyed our chat, so thanks for having me on.
Awesome. So did I.
Yeah.
It was a blast.
Yeah.
So, all right, everybody, you take care out there and remember to remain unbreakable. Thanks for tuning in.